Hello, host Eric here, and I am talking today about the relationship between understanding slash knowledge slash comprehension and language, saying the thing you're understanding in words. So, the phenomenon I had was the other day I said to myself, I was feeling sad because I had this dream about some dead relatives of mine who were very old when they passed away, but who nevertheless were significant fixtures in my childhood, which is to say, my childhood was comprised of an extended family that involved a lot of great uncles and great aunts. That is to say, my mother's mother's siblings, my mother's mother being one of 8 living siblings, and a ninth was stillborn. Of that family, none of that generation is still alive. The last one just died a few years ago at the age of 90 something, Ellie Mae. She was the youngest of the kids. So I'd always maintained the following position in general, that in my life I hadn't really known any tragedy, that I had been well cared for and not experienced a lot of, tragedy. And then the other day I found myself saying to myself, or trying to say out loud in a go-to-meeting session, before pausing the video and the sound, which was that almost my entire family is dead. And it was a striking realization for me that was in fact the case. My grandfather was murdered when I was in 5th grade. He was shot in the stomach 5 times, and I didn't really have much of an emotional response to it at all. I didn't really feel anything. I just thought, that's odd. That's troubling in some sense. I didn't really know how to process it. When my grandmother died when I was 18 years old, and she was a huge fixture in my childhood, I was a freshman in college, and my parents never informed me that she was dying until after finals were over. They didn't mention anything to me. Then they got me down there, but it was too late. She was already dead. I didn't get to see her before she died. So I kind of, in retrospect, I guess resent that. At the time, it didn't seem to matter at all to me either way. I didn't feel anything. So for me, coming to the realization that I have strong feelings about this stuff is a process of saying the words that are difficult to say, which are the words that represent the feeling that I'm experiencing. And when I dreamed the other night, I was able to access that emotion more directly, except although processed into existential terror, as I call it. And in the end, the words revealed what the actual emotion was about, and I was able to process it a lot more clearly. So my curiosity is, in respect to Enid Patterson's, I know this is a long introduction, thank you for your patience, in respect to Enid Patterson's comment that indicated that she experienced the same thing, but from an NEFI perspective, that she often knew what her thinking was on something once she said the words and not before, or not abstractly in some consistent sense. So I'm wondering if this also applies for if Eccentric M can verify that experience on his own as an ENFP, and or if Tiffany can verify his experience or her experience with the ENTP, and or if Overlord can talk about something comparable, if there is something comparable, in terms of language allowing you understanding in terms of any of your cognitive functions. And with that, I'll pass it on to the assembled people who each wish to comment. Eccentric M, you want to go first?
I don't know how to go about it. So, what exactly do you want me to explain or have a thought on?
Does this phenomenon resonate with you? I don't really know understand introverted thinking until I say words that make me feel what the truth of the introverted thinking is.
I've never really thought about it, so I can't really explain that.
Okay.
I'm experiencing it.
Okay, well, muse about it. Let me go to Basement Overlord and we'll come back to you at the end. Overlord, any thoughts on this phenomenon, if you have something comparable or if anything like this resonates with you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for, but I'm just going to say what I think you're looking for, which is that I have a process of condensing down my logical TI structures by talking through what I'm thinking. And it's interesting because what I can do is I can talk about a subject and rewatch the video if I record myself talking about it, and then rewatch what I just saw, and then see the inconsistencies in the inconsistencies. I can't even say that. The inconsistencies of the video, of the logic, and I can make another video, and I can just keep talking it through, just reducing it down to just the core logical elements that my thought process involves. And then once I have like a really fundamental understanding, then that's it's almost like I've condensed it down as much as I need to, and then that's internalized in my brain.
Is that condensing it down to like a single word, like fig, represents this whole complex set of arguments?
Yeah, it's like the less words that I need to use, the better the argument is. If each of those words are exactly, like if I understand exactly what each word means, I need less of them to convey an argument. Like if I'm trying to explain how TI works, I can just like belt out like a 20-page essay on what I think how TI works. And then I read that 20-page essay and I see, okay, this, and this are all just random stuff that isn't the core foundation of TI. Let me take those out. So then I write another essay that's 10 pages. And I write another essay that's 5 pages, and I condense it down to like a paragraph.
I wanna chime in on this TI-TE thing, externalization thing. First of all, there's a couple of internal processes that take advantage of new technology to externalize in ways that aren't possible biologically. So SI is a good example of that, and TI can be as well. Also, I would say that there's a weird boundary here between TI and TE, because the process you're talking about is the same process I use to teach debaters complex arguments. Is I give them a set of arguments, I tag it out with certain single names that reference certain other names, and link them together like that to give them a set of little teeny packs that unpack into a big whole set of understandings, right? That's so I use that methodology, but I don't use it in a set of protocols per se, because it's I do it kind of seat of the pants, because it's, I don't know, I guess it's not a conscious function or something.
Yeah.
So okay, proceed. Anything else you want to say about this?
Yeah, so you kinda talked about I thought TI doesn't externalize their thought process, which is true. My understanding of a lot of things involves me just swirling around in my head with all like I feel like I understand what I'm talking about, and swirling around in my head, and if someone asks me to define it and I'm clueless. So what I have to do is a lot of times I write down what I'm thinking, and writing down is a really stream of consciousness process, and that gets all just the swirling thoughts into my head out into external reality, and then that involves the condensing process, which I think that involves the SE-NI axis of just looking at the objective information and condensing it down. But the first, like you said, the first part of it is the TI does not externalize the thought process. It's just a bunch of ideas swirling around the head.
I think that's how you bypass the barriers implicit in having any in your POLR.
Well, I think it is indicative of the fact that SE is my second, because INTPs I don't think do this process of just writing down their thoughts and then condensing it down. They're more likely to either discuss it in intellectual subject with other people like ENTPs, or not find any use putting it out there at all. Whereas I need to like put it out and then reduce it down, because the ISTPs are they're more condensing down the information, you know.
Okay, host Tiffany, do you want to I just noticed the name of
I can put it a little bit more simply for me.
All
For
right,
me,
go ahead.
I never know what I've got until I have one of those kind of aha moments, and there's always a bigger aha moment.
Okay.
And for me, it's always the journey to that next moment of realization of what I figured out that I didn't realize I figured out.
Okay, does it come through language?
A lot of it's auditory, and some of it's visual.
Okay. Let's see, do we have...
But occasionally, it's even more of like a more metaphysical kind of emotional kind of thing. Sometimes I get that some kind of weird feeling in my stomach, and I go and I connect it with how someone else must have thought or something, and then I could even use it in that direction as well sometimes, but much harder.
Okay. Charles Barkley's French Poodle. Do you have any comments on this? I like your name.
Yeah, me too.
That's a very NTP name. Okay. How about Contract Under Guadalupe First Seal, who I don't believe is an NTP, but that's also a fairly NTP name. How about... Oh, go ahead, Meg, bro.
Uh, sorry, I was getting interrupted. What you said about writing it and just condensing it down over and over again, I'm thinking about a prediction I made using Core Code. I predicted that TI, if you have like two logical systems and try and decide between them using NI, I predicted a name called rule rewriting, and I'm just wondering how that matches up with what you just said there.
Well, rule rewriting is an interesting way to put it. I would almost put it as rule condensing, finding the rules, the bare rules we
Distillation. Distillation. That's what
need.
you're describing.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, distillation. Finding, like, you don't need a billion rules if you don't need a billion rules to govern people if you can find 100 that'll do the same thing.
Right, and that would be like NI trying to take control of the situation and merge them together.
Yeah, condense it down. It's like building.
I think it's alternating. I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. Continue what you were saying.
Well, I just want to finish it off by saying, like, the way I think of NI is very much like building a rubber band ball, and it's a solid, like, strong, just rubber band ball. It's at its core the most basic fundamental components of it.
It sounds
That's
like
an interesting way to put it, because if you stretch it, you can stick objects in it, but if you don't have any content in it, it's just a container.
Yeah, that's probably a different topic, and we could probably go off on that for a while.
I think
got work tomorrow and it's late here.
For another video.
I think what it sounds like is just being described to me is a process of going and looking at the NI standard of what the thing is you're making is supposed to be according to your NI, and then going back to your TI and using your TI to refine it to make it look more like that, because you can't use them concurrently.
Well, I would say that the quote supposed to be is a TI process. This is a judging function. I don't think introvert intuition, unless you think of introvert intuition as the vision of what you think it looks like versus what it's quote supposed to be, would be TI.
I mean, I disagree. I think TI operates on the framework and on a introverted intuition framework first and foremost that it doesn't acknowledge, which is that there's some fundamental axiomatic truths, both moral and grammatical and aesthetic even as well, that are realized in holons, as Megabro would say. And those truths are the things that you're referencing your rough human manifestation of the vision that you have of this final thing that's supposed to do X. And it's a whole vision because you're using NI to get there.
But part of a tendency of NI holons is that they tend to contain opposites, which makes it really hard to say that something is true.
Well, fine, but I'm saying the TI is trying to parse down. So let's say this paper then that Basement Overlord is writing is trying to express that paradoxical coexistence, okay? That's manifesting your NI truth. He's going to want the paper to express it in a concise fashion that describes exactly all the components of the holon and nothing that's not the holon.
Yeah.
And the TI is how he goes back and forth. He goes, okay, here's the vision, here's here's how to match it up. Here's the vision again. Let's see, is it matched up better? Yeah, it's better, but still not right. Now here's pair away a little bit more, pair away a little bit more.
Yeah, the vision
In contrast,
is NI though, right? Is
right, the
vision
vision's
yeah,
NI.
I agree. The vision's NI.
Okay, cool. So in contrast with NE and TI, which does something really difficult to deal with, which is, oh, here's a good idea. Let's chase down this path a little ways. Now let's look around and see if there's some other path that this suggests. Wait, this path isn't done yet. Who cares? I'm looking around for more paths. That's the challenge NE has, right? It happens upon like sort of glimmering moments of parts of hold-ons, basically. And it has to learn to finagle its way to actually access the hold-on. And so it's a much more challenging process, I think, for an NE done. Let's call this part one of this topic. I want to get other people, and let's find out how many other people want to chime in on this. JC, do you got any thoughts on this? The thought of using language to actualize a certain function, or to catalyze it.
I think that the TEFI access is different in how it, I guess, produces language. But I do agree with Basement Overlord. He said in the chat that extroverts tend to extrovert more, which makes sense. Like, we externalize more things in general. Like, we are going to externalize our thoughts just because we're extroverted first. But I think with TE and FI, when you have FI first, it's this disconnect because, well, not a disconnect, but TE is trying to make sense of your FI feel, like if you're dealing with something that's more feeling based, it definitely has difficulties. And the funny thing is that I think those types that have TE on top of FI, I think that they're actually better at speaking about, like, they would be better at speaking about their feelings if they connected quicker with their feelings. So, because I think TE is more of like the voice box for us, whereas like me, it's like FI is over TE, so TE is just not equipped to deal with FI stuff. But with them, it's the opposite way around. They can explain things, but they don't like, FI is not really, I don't know, it's there, but it's not as,
it's just not predominant. It doesn't
Yeah,
operate
well-
on as many dimensions. Go ahead.
I think that TE DOMs are better at explaining things, but when you ask them how they feel about it, they spend a great deal of time explaining everything but how they feel about it.
Mega Bro, did you have something to add? I saw your mic was on for a second.
Oh, I was going to say that I don't remember where I heard this. It might have been. Oh, it was some special version of MBTI, but it I don't remember what it was called, but it called the extrovert judging functions TE and JE the I don't know what it was, something like articulating. It was like speaking. They're most represented in speaking. TE and FE.
They're the most articulate, you're saying?
They're the most represented
Yeah.
in speaking. That, in other words, the ideas you have in TE are much more likely, almost exclusively, to be spoken aloud.
To come out similar to how they actually exist. Whereas if you have to get TI out, it gets filtered through FE.
Right. Whereas there's lots of thoughts that I don't say. There are lots of thoughts that even I don't say. Internal thinking stuff that I chase down. I chase down potential, conditionality relations and determine them not to work out or something like that. I'm not going to necessarily say it out loud. It's just something I did in my head. Okay, other people with thoughts. Jim, do you have any thoughts? I want to go down and get some of these other people, make sure they get a chance if they're waiting patiently. I don't know if they are or not.
I'm listening and it's all very interesting, but I think it's you know a lot more about MBTI than I do, so I don't have anything to input at this point.
All right. Well, thank you for speaking. That gives you, according to
Status.
Basement Overlord, you get a special kind of famous person status. It's a little different than just the chat people. I'm not sure what it is yet, but we're going to figure that out.
Maybe associate famous person. I don't know. Associate host. I don't even know.
Everybody's a famous person. That's it. That's the only thing there is.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how
I
about
have
just...
one
I will come back to you, Basement Overlord, I promise.
Yeah. Let other people talk. I just want to let you know that I have one more thing.
Okay, cool. Just a post hominid. Anything from you? Nope. Kit Kats. Anything from you? You like that kind of candy? I like that kind of candy too. They're good. Gotta keep them in the fridge though, or else they'll melt. Sticks 66. Any comments? Trick Nasty. Uconda, you have words of wisdom to share with us? Six is lurking, he or she says. Okay, back to Basement Overlord. Speak your words of wisdom.
Well, we can wrap this video up. The last thing I was going to say is that I think, in general, a lot of what people say has content to it, and then they have a particular disposition toward whatever they're saying. And I think ENFJs and ESFJs are really good at displaying the disposition they have toward whatever they're saying, so they can be really motivational speakers, whereas ENTJs and ESTJs are really good at expressing the exact content of what they're saying. So they're really good at instructional, informative information. Like I think, Chad Crandall is pretty good at explaining the theory behind MBTI, especially the theory that he has learned specifically from his certification program. He's really good at replicating what he's learning there. He might not be as good at going on the fly like an ENTP would, but specifically about.
Right, yeah, well, I mean, he's much more likely to be right than an ENTP. We're going to sound just as right as he is, though. We're going to sound exactly as right. He's going to be, he won't talk about stuff he doesn't understand. That's the difference, right? I'm happy to just spout off opinions, because most of my opinions are offered conditionally anyway. They're like, well, if it were like that, then it would seem to be logical that it would be like this, right? And then people either say, no, it's not like that, Eric, you're wrong, or they say, yeah, that does seem to make sense, or whatever, So, okay, thanks for watching Talking with Famous People.